Let's do a leadership analysis of Tucker Carlson's RNC speech. So, welcome everyone. This is going to be very fun because Tucker Carlson is a man that I admire. I think he's a pretty fantastic leader. He is not without his flaws, nor am I or anyone. But his speech last night was about a 5-6 minute speech. And it was very good. It was very on point, and he did a lot of really good things as a leader. There's probably only one or two things which I would have liked to see differently. But man, I'm going to give this speech an A plus. So the first thing he does is he actually comes out at a rather formal event. Most everyone's wearing suits and ties, including the speaker, and he comes out casual. And he works the crowd a little bit, makes a connection with the crowd. He's pointing at people, he's giving shout outs, and he has really good energy. So that's a great way to start a speech, especially at an event like this where you're speaking to this huge audience. Okay. Then again, these are almost completely like-minded individuals. And then you have him talking about the transformation of another leader. Of course, the bulk of his speech is going to be pointed at another leader. So when I give a leadership analysis of a leader giving a speech about a leader, we obviously have layers to that. So talking about the transformation, it is impossible for a person not to be transformed in some capacity after an attempt on their life, a near-death experience, and he draws that out. So obviously that is the topic at hand in conjunction with his nomination. That's Trump's nomination as the Republican candidate. And he immediately comes out and he talks about the term the leader of a nation. And he goes into what I will refer to from my speeches as positional leadership versus personal leadership. And he calls the positional leaderships the leadership of title, the leadership of title. So to break that down, give everyone an insight real quick, positional leadership is somebody has supervisor or manager or vice president, president on the desk at their office or their team captain or whatever it may be. That is a position of title. And literally a position. And then there's personal leadership is I follow you because of the characteristics and influence you have as a person. And positional and personal leadership are separate. Hopefully they're combined into one area, but they are separate things. And Tucker Carlson does a great job defining the differences. You could literally be an animal or a puppet or a mannequin put into a place and you have the title of leader, but it doesn't mean you have the influence and the followership as a leader. And he pointed out very well, like I did in my first leadership analysis of Trump's reaction to the assassination attempt, he pointed out the same thing. So that is an echoing message. A title, the positional leadership, can be subverted. It can literally mean nothing. For example, you could be in just your average workplace in America and somebody is labeled supervisor or manager on their name tag. And sure, people say, okay, boss, yes, boss. But then there's somebody way down lower in the chain of command that has personal influence and really drives people to be motivated and do a good job and get the work done, even though they have to technically say, yes, boss. So there's a big difference, and they will not follow those people. I want to echo this message. I say this all the time. People vote for their leaders with their feet, which means if a leader is good, they're going to get in line. They're going to follow that leader wherever they go. And if it's a bad leader, they're really going to walk away from that leader. They're going to vote with their feet, in line, following, or in exiting from that leader. And I think it's very interesting to see that RNC convention last night had a population record. It was the largest one. That's a feet vote. People are voting with their feet. But Tucker Carlson continues to point out some really good leadership points. The leader is the bravest man. Of course, he's using man in the term of generally speaking, it could be a woman, but it's the bravest man. It's the person in whatever organization steps up and says, I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to take the bold moves. I'm going to be the one that has to make the bold or critical statements. I'm going to make the decisions to cut something or add something or do whatever it is. It's the bravest man. And here's where I'm going to challenge Tucker Carlson. One of the small areas, he says this is just a law of nature. It's not a law of nature. It's a law of creation. So if you read the scriptures, you follow the scriptures, leaders are made, not born, and they follow certain principles. And you can hear about all of that in my 7 principles of leadership. But I would say it's a law of creation that the leader is the bravest person and does these things. And you can just go look at example after example of those great leaders in the Bible and the scriptures. And then what he does is he references a phone call from Donald Trump. And so he's going into a personal story. So Tucker Carlson, again, relates to the crowd through a personal story about a phone call from Donald Trump and how they talked to Donald Trump about how they talked about the response to the incident. And he said, he said, Donald Trump didn't talk about this. I said, the crowd didn't run. I'm so proud of my people. I'm so proud of the people that didn't run, that, they got low. And Tucker Carlson points out, he's like, well, that's because you're the leader. You gave a courageous response. You led out front in that moment and you raised your fist to the sky and your crowd didn't have to panic because you didn't panic. Again, leading out front, my 5 positions of leadership, that was one of them demonstrated in that moment. And then you have the followers mimicking the behavior of their leader. That's huge. That is very huge. And then that could have been a very inflaming moment. Trump, an immature Trump or an immature leader, could have turned around and been like, they tried to kill me. We got to get back at them. He could have used the most inflammatory language that we've seen in a long time and literally flipped this country upside down through riots, through even up to the escalating into violence and civil war. But he didn't. He took a breath, gave a mature response. And so a leader pointed out the leaders in another. And of course, that's what I'm doing here today. This was a very responsible and a very unifying moment in the reactions that happen. And there, of course, can be people playing the blame game. They're going to be attacking this. But Tucker Carlson is pointing out the positive things. This was a positive speech. Okay? And he says that a leader has a duty to his people. He has a duty to his country and to no other. So I would challenge that statement, because every person has a responsibility first and foremost. It's a God-given duty to their spouse and to their children. So I like the fact that he says that later on in the speech. Tucker Carlson up front basically says a president should be a leader to his country first and not take care of his family. That is false. That's not scriptural. But he does correct that statement later on. So that's a little ping in the speech there, but again, it did get corrected. So then he talks about democracy and how to reestablish democracy, and he compares ownership to democracy, how the citizens own the democracy, not the politicians, not the elected officials. And I want to compare this, the servant-minded side of this, because if you know my 7 principles of leadership, you know I lay the foundation of servant leadership on the 7 principles. And we go and we look at this, and he says, the country owns the people. Well, that's very similar. In a business, I technically own the company, but if I'm a true servant leader, my people are telling me what they need. They're telling me the resources. They're telling me what I need to be as their leader to effectively lead them. And in a healthy culture, those are always good things. And I'm going to provide the equipment, provide the resources, provide the training necessary to elevate my people. So they do have an ownership sense of the company saying, hey, I want to perform my job well. This is what I need to do that. And I'm going to do everything I can to get that to them. In a democracy, it works the same way. Hey, I'm your elected official out of Georgia, Kentucky, Ohio, Florida. It doesn't matter. I'm going to try to get you what you need, not I'm going to get what I need and toe the party line. That's one thing that I love about leadership versus politics. And then he gives examples of bad leadership. There's a little bit of derailing because this is an overall positive speech where he kind of blasts the Democratic Party, but he does give real historical examples of bad leadership when people acted on behalf of a agenda, of a ulterior motive, and then he dials it back in. And I really like that he pointed out the fact about a leader, because he was pretty funny in the speech. He made his little quips, his little jokes, and he says Donald Trump is a funny man. Again, keeping things in context, you have to be funny with empathy. But he says he's a funny man, and leaders often do not take themselves seriously. That's part of being humble, is that you can laugh at yourself, you can laugh at a situation, again, after the stuff has been done. You know, that's one of those things, hey, 10 years from now, we're going to look back and laugh. Well, a leader has to be able to do that. And then here comes the good part. He wraps back in that a father has a duty to his family first. So I really like that he said that. And then as a president, he has a duty to his citizens. And Donald Trump does that. And he pointed out that he does that. And I think that's a very good thing to emphasize to people, is that Donald Trump's truly not taking care of his marriage. He's truly not taking care of the relationship with his kids. Can he truly be the best president? Can he truly be clear-minded, sober-minded, where he's not stressed out at home? He's not stressed out with the condition of his family. And I'm not talking about attacks from the media and stuff like that. I'm talking about the loving relationship. And I'm going to move on to love some more. So quick tangent on JD Vance. I already did the leadership analysis on JD Vance. There'll probably be another one to come. And if you guys will watch out for a TV show called Purple Politics, I'll actually be a guest on that show to specifically talk about leadership analysis on people like JD Vance and other people in the near future. But he talked about, again, being a decent man that's close to his wife. So you can look at the behavior of a leader on how he treats his wife, his kids, and those people close to him, and tell how he's going to be a leader. So I'll leave it at that one, since we already did that video. But there are people that are like-minded in a certain way, and a leader will take a gathering of advisors. It's one of the principles of leadership, is gathering advisors around you, and they're not all just yes men. In fact, some of them need to challenge you. Some of them need to be like-minded, but maybe they're like-minded in a different way, a different delivery, a different charisma style, a different, more liaison version of acting. And I think that's one of the major reasons that JD Vance converted over to following Trump, and then Trump chose him. And then something bigger than politics. I love what Tucker Carlson does here. He goes, God is coming into the picture for many. And he even says, he puts it on himself, I've not always been the most godly man or claimed to be on God's side. And he points out his faults in the past year. It's important for a leader to be able to take accountability and point out their faults. He says, I haven't always been on the right side. I try to be on the right side. I'm on the right side now. I'm going to be on the right side as frequently as possible in the future. But nobody's perfect, right? Only one guy was perfect. We're not him. And so he talks about love. And he says it's not just a man's love. See, a human can create their own version of love. Love is love, which is not the real definition of love. The real definition of love is defined by God is love. And he references that God's love is coming in here. And he says that God is among us. Where two or more are gathered in my name, there I will be also, is what the scriptures say. So God is in that room. Even if everyone's not a devout believer, wholehearted, but there are many gathered in that room, there's an influence of God's love in that room. And I think that's so important for us to realize that there are bigger things in play here. And this leader points out that there are bigger things in play. And I am no way going to say that God is for this person and God is for that person, but I will tell you that God is for whoever is for him. So pay attention to more leadership analysis. I'm going to make a prediction in this video similar to the ending of Tucker Carlson's statement. I believe that the transformation that Trump is starting to make, not just toning down, because he's still pointing out the issues and the flaws through his speech, but he's toning it down. He's not trying to be just overly aggressive in his statements and things like that. But I think you're going to watch a transformation in Trump, not just on the political arena, the delivery side of who he is, and not necessarily on his version of charisma, but I think you're going to watch him spiritually transform. So pay attention to Trump spiritually transforming, and I think the devout nature of his Christianity is really going to rise to the surface. And we're not just going to see a man that's familiar with the Bible, familiar with the gospel, and in general support of it, but a man that is devoted to it. Pay attention for more leadership analysis. That was the speech given by Tucker Carlson at the RNC last night.